Colorado's top virus experts predict a miserable stretch between now and New Year's. If their projections are half right, we'll still lose thousands of our neighbors. Yet some local leaders in Colorado continue to insist that it is people's right to spread the virus, leading the governor to ask,
are you on the side of the virus or are you on the side of Colorado?
Taking sides tends to happen when we're stressed beyond belief, like the mayor suggesting his hospital should ban people from a neighboring county that isn't following the rules. Digging around for encouraging news today took a few extra scoops, but there is cause for optimism in some of our COVID numbers, and in a show of faith that has endured in our state for centuries. That's next. If 25 Coloradans were shot and killed in a day, that would stop this state. 25 Coloradans were hit and killed crossing the street today. We'd immediately want action. I mean, heck, if 25 Coloradans died each day from some kind of new virus, we'd be shocked. But yet we do not seem shocked at all that that's how many of our neighbors we are losing each day to COVID-19. And the state's projections unveiled today expect it to get a lot worse between now and New Year's. Now, we here have been critical of some of these models the state puts out because they have been like worst case do nothing scenarios. The state is projecting that on top of the 2,800 Coloradans lost to COVID, almost 4,000 more could die by the end of the year. Not in a do nothing scenario, but the state says that's simply at our current transmission rate. By the state's more encouraging projection released today, we would still see 2,000 additional deaths by the end of the year. Here's why the state's doctors think that's going to happen.
And it really has to do with the amount of disease transmission that we are seeing right now. It's an unprecedented level. As all of you know and you saw in the figure, the amount of disease transmission that we've seen in Colorado in the last several days is really the highest it's been since the beginning of the pandemic. And at that high rate of disease transmission, we are unfortunately going to see an increasing number of deaths occur in the state. Of course, that's a lagging indicator. So it will be, weeks until we see those deaths unfortunately accumulate in the state.
As she noted, as we always know, deaths are reported sometimes well after the fact, so we tend to look back about a week to get the most accurate number. And at that point, last Tuesday, we were losing 27 Coloradans a day to COVID. If we continue just at that rate, if the state's expected increase in the death rate doesn't happen, well, then still we would lose another 1,215 Coloradans between that date and the end of the year. There are 1,613 COVID patients currently in Colorado's hospitals. That's up 16 from yesterday. Now, hopefully, we're beginning to see the start of a sustained slowing in new hospitalizations. It's one of two pieces of good news we saw today. The other one is the positivity rate. It dropped yesterday to 10.6%. Now, some of that could be a rush by healthy people to go out and get tested before Thanksgiving, but let's just pray that it holds. Last week's average was at 12.5%. Our new case rate seems to be slowing as well. Colorado added 3,161 new cases yesterday. We're now averaging a little more than 4,600 new cases per day. Anger over the recently increased public health restrictions is bringing out different types of responses. You have Weld County's Republican commissioners flat out refusing to enforce the rules, while our Steve Steger found a city offering people a chance to complain and then get on board with the new rules.
There has been no communication, no dialogue, no response.
And that is why more than 65 businesses in Loveland have signed a letter informing their health department that they won't be moving to level red restrictions, even though Larimer County moved into the red officially at 5 p.m. Tuesday.
Unfortunately, we feel like this is our only avenue of getting the attention of the people we need to be talking about.
Morgan Harrington is a co-owner of Grimm Brothers Brewing.
The shutdowns are going to be a death sentence for a lot of businesses here.
She says her business already goes above and beyond where they were under previous restrictions, and that's what they'll keep doing. Today, Democratic Governor Jared Polis said the state will respond to businesses that don't follow the rules, revoking licenses if they have to.
I believe that most of the businesses in town were doing a pretty good job with it.
South on I-25, the town of Castle Rock is holding a special meeting tonight to vote on a resolution opposing the restrictions, though Mayor Jason Gray says it is by no means a suggestion that businesses shouldn't follow the rules.
I don't think the defiance is part of the right thing to do. I I don't condemn businesses for doing it. I don't condone businesses for doing it. Well, I think our resolution, I think what we're trying to make sure our citizens know is that, we're on their side.
Gray says this is a chance for business owners to be heard and hopefully convince state and federal legislators to do something.
To close businesses down without a plan, without compensation, is just really, really hard, and it should be illegal.
On those businesses in Larimer County, I asked the sheriff's department there if they plan to help the health department enforce those regulations and restrictions. And through a spokesman, Republican Sheriff Justin Smith said he has no intention of shutting down businesses. And he said, and I quote, "Given that the police reform bill makes a local peace officer personally liable for violations of constitutional rights, the legislature and governor have recognized that we have an enhanced understanding of those rights and an obligation to ensure that we aren't infringing on citizens' rights." Kyle.
Well, there's a layer cake of politics, Steve. You've got the public health rules. You've got the old gripes about police reform. I do think that's an interesting approach there in Castle Rock. We don't think they should be doing it this way, harming businesses without federal or state aid coming in behind them. That could happen as soon as next week with a statewide stimulus plan through the special session. But just kind of telling people, you might as well come in. We'll hear from you. We're on your side, but then we're going to go forward and do it.
And perhaps it comes from the mayor there, who has an interesting perspective. He's a cafe owner. He owns 2 cafes in Castle Rock, and he says, I can't necessarily blame the businesses who want to do this. I wouldn't do it because I fear if I did, I might have some sort of repercussions from the state. They might come in, take my license away, or I might lose a loan, something like along those lines.
All right, Steve, thank you. So we heard from Weld County, where residents and businesses are free to do as they please despite the restrictions. You got Longmont's hospital that's like right on the Weld County line. And the mayor of that city says he wants hospital beds reserved for residents of counties that enforce the health guidelines. You know how that's going over. Here's Marshall Zellinger.
Longmont straddles Boulder and Weld counties. Both are in level red COVID restrictions, but Weld County leaders have said they won't enforce the state's new rules.
I'm hoping to show the Weld County commissioners that it's not all about you. I also want my restaurants open.
Longmont Mayor Brian Bagley wants City Council to vote on an ordinance that would dictate who gets medical treatment at Longmont's 2 hospitals if they're nearing capacity.
If your elected officials are failing to comply with the governor's orders, it means that if there's only 1 bed available and there are 2 people needing it, it's going to go to the person residing in a municipality or county where their elected officials are working with the governor to keep hospital capacity down.
Before we get too deep, yes, Bagley is the same mayor who said this in March.
I want someone to come over and spit in my mouth so I can go get in the hospital now because I'm not going to die.
What I meant was I wanted to get COVID early because what I didn't want to have happen is all of us, we don't get COVID until it comes flu season. And then all of a sudden our hospitals are at capacity.
Which brings us back to the idea of limiting who can be cared for. As you would expect, Weld County does not accept.
We have someone out there trying to interject themselves into the private business marketplace and tell a group of hospitals how they're supposed to manage their patients and how they're supposed to deliver care to 2 individuals that have the same exact virus, regardless of what precautions someone may have taken or someone may have not taken. And that, to me, is extremely troubling.
Earlier today, Weld County's website showed 57 ICU beds available. That includes 14 hospitals in the northern Colorado region, not just the 2 hospitals in Weld County proper. Bagley said Weld County hospitals have 3 empty ICU beds, Longmont 7. So is the idea to reserve medical space even realistic? Probably not.
Any politicization of the virus catches patients in the middle. And our hospitals are going to continue treating everyone who comes through the front door because it's the right thing to do, regardless of what local elected officials in this county or that county say.
What I'm trying to do is put political pressure on citizens of Weld County to say, wait a second, time out, maybe we should reconsider.
If this wasn't complicated enough, there's a federal law with a long name that requires a hospital to screen someone and treat them for an emergency. I come in, I get help. That law doesn't talk about what happens when the emergency is over, so could a hospital say, you got to go somewhere else now because we need this bed for someone from an accommodating county? I don't think so, but it's not specific in that federal law, Kyle.
I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but that whole thing is gross. It's gross. Like the idea that like you don't like a political leader's position on public health restrictions, so you're going to punish the people of a county that had nothing to do with it. I mean, Marshall, you hear from the same people or the same group of people who contact NEXT every single day in Weld County, who don't share the viewpoint of the folks that are just like, yeah, run around and French kiss strangers. People who are following public health restrictions and saw this as like, oh, this could deny me care potentially. That's pretty wild.
You're asking a hospital to do an ID check, somehow know that you're from a part of the county that may not be following this rule, and that you're among that group of people who may not be following this rule, as though that should be held against you.
Yeah, again, it's gross. It's not as gross as telling somebody to spit in your mouth at a public meeting like the mayor did, but it's pretty gross. Marshall, thank you. Some members of Jeffco's canvassing board are refusing to certify the results of the election in that county, defying the will of the voters with no evidence of wrongdoing or voter fraud in Jeffco. This has just kind of become like the politically trendy thing for people on canvassing boards to do lately. A majority of the Jeffco canvassing board did sign off, so their election results are official. Jeffco Republicans sent a letter to the county clerk saying that they want a review of races in that county because they use Dominion software. Dominion is the focus of a conspiracy theory promoted by President Trump's legal team that Dominion is involved in a plot with communists worldwide and the Clintons and Antifa and the dead Venezuelan dictator Hugo Chavez to rig our elections.
Our church is a movement for unity, and we were a movement for unity way back in Denver in the 1880s.
This is not the first interfaith Thanksgiving in Colorado during a pandemic. Just first one like this. Next. Leaving your fishing line behind to catch a bird or two, that's not how you Colorado. It was like a Greek tragedy playing out at Navajo Lake. A bald eagle apparently swooped down to catch a duck. That duck was already wrapped in fishing line and both birds got tangled. By the time a hunter got to them, the duck was dead and the eagle was in pretty rough shape. That eagle spent a week at a wildlife rehab center and just got released back at Navajo State Park. With a reminder for us humans, you can catch two birds with one discarded piece of fishing line.
Winter finally making a comeback here in Colorado. A beautiful start to the day. 7 inches around Arvada, Jamestown, Golden at 6. 5 officially out at DIA where we keep score. So now we're kind of right there at average for the month. Tonight, our storm system moving out very fast. In fact, it's spinning out some severe storms in Kansas and Oklahoma while that snow comes to an end here in Colorado. It's a cold night up in the mountains in the teens, 19 here in Denver. As we look at the future cast, by about 11 p.m. our skies mostly clear, and we'll keep it that way overnight into tomorrow. In fact, tomorrow a little warmer. We'll have plenty of sunshine too. Daytime highs back to the mid-50s here in the city with 30s and 40s up in the high country. High pressure around, but again, not for long. This next storm system diving in on Thanksgiving, bringing us just a few flurries here in Denver. A cool day at 44, but we're back in business with the 50s by the weekend.
May I make a recommendation, point you towards something that I think is worth your time? You know that Colorado, of course, has deep Spanish roots, especially in southern Colorado. Give a read to Sam Tabachnik's piece in The Post about a race to save a unique Spanish dialect spoken in parts of southern Colorado. The language was a combination of Spanish and Native American words with some influence from the French fur trappers who came through. The Spanish dialect of Upper Rio Grande region, as it's called, is fading away these days. The story of how some locals are trying to preserve it is linked on the next Facebook page. A Thanksgiving tradition in Colorado since the 1800s. Not only will the pandemic not stop it, the tradition is getting larger. And they say dress for the job you want. This Coloradan apparently wants to be a snowplow operator in Hawaii. That's next. Interfaith gatherings for Thanksgiving have been an American tradition for ages. Colorado's Interfaith Thanksgiving has drawn upwards of 1,000 guests in years past. This year, like everything, it's different. As in, it's bigger.
It's the spirit of unity. Our church is a movement for unity, and we were a movement for unity way back in Denver in the 1880s. Our partners are Muslim, Buddhist, Jewish, Christian, Universalist, and other interfaith partners. I'm Kanan Harris. I'm the pastor of Central Christian Church, and I have been here since 2007. We gather as many as can fit in those spaces. So normally the group is about 800 or 900 people gathered together in one place. You know, normally Thanksgiving is a work day for me. I'm dressed in my suit and robes, and you know, we're doing a big event. But this year I can keep on my pajamas and sit back at home because all of this is pre-recorded. So we'll all be tuning in at 10 a.m. to watch together. That day we'll be joining on the YouTube channel at 10 o'clock this Thursday, and we'll look to see how many more join with us. And it'll be a spirit of celebration, because although we will miss our normal gathering in person, how many more can we connect with the message of unity and hope than we otherwise would? And what else, you know, can we do? The sun rises each day, and you know, we just put one foot in front of the other, and our job is to bring a message of encouragement, particularly in these divisive times.
All donations this year go to the Struggle of Love Foundation. It's an organization that works to end youth violence and help struggling families in our city. We featured that organization previously through your Word of Thanks microgiving campaign. So each year we set the holiday table full of our fails to remind ourselves, you know what, it's the thought that counts. Abby is going to kick off our season with a classic from her Thanksgiving 2014 when she lost the handle on the hot apple pie. It ended up on the rug and melted clear through the rug. Abby told us she was pregnant at the time and said that everyone can just imagine how the pregnant lady reacted to the ruined rug and pie explosion. No dessert that year, just a great story to share. All right, anybody else want to share with the class? Email photos or videos of your favorite holiday fail to next@9news.com. Give us a shout with the hashtag HeyNext. This could be something from holidays past, a classic, or perhaps it's whatever disaster is looming for you on Thursday. If our snow and cold today makes you wish you were on a beach vacation, we spotted a guy who is already there in spirit. That and a very special piece of feedback next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is one man's snow removal attire. Reed sent us this picture of his son clearing snow outside their house in Arvada. We're actually told that the Hawaiian shirt, shorts, and tennis shoes are kind of this man's uniform for snow chores. Email us the most Colorado thing you saw today. Next@9news.com is the email, or give us a shout with the hashtag HeyNext. Got an email note during the show from Dallas in Weld County saying, I'm staying home alone completely for Thanksgiving. Wear my mask everywhere, practice social distancing. I am an innocent citizen, Dallas writes. The idea that I could be denied hospital care because of what my elected officials decided is appalling. What about the Longmont mayor? Barbara in Centennial writes in, where is Kyle's suit? He looks unprofessional, as usual. Barbara says, have your wife start picking out your clothes and start telling the truth. God is watching. Barbara, God is watching, and I'm fairly certain that God has more substantive concerns than my clothes, but bless your heart.